On Friday, June 12th,
There'll be thousands of dollars to be won. A lotto jackpot of
$63,000.
a new home, car, or that college education.
Lotto, you have to be in it to win it.
Next lotto jackpot.
$63,000.
Good morning, boys and girls. Do you know what this is? Do you want to avoid getting shocked? Tune in on VC3 as we focus on science lessons. I'm your teacher, Javid Wilson.
Seems to me, girl, you know I care. You see, I beg, stole, and I borrow. Yeah, yeah. Ooh, and I'm easy. I'm easy like Sunday morning.
Good evening and welcome to another edition of Roundtable Talk. We are pleased to welcome back to the Roundtable the Honourable Minister of Agriculture, SABOTO Caesar, and the Chief Operating Officer at the Medicinal Cannabis Authority, Mr. TERRAL MAPP. Welcome back to both of you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for taking the time once again. Now, one thing we have to do, COVID or no COVID, we all have to eat. We have to feed ourselves, feed the nation, and even feed our neighbors. A lot has been happening and continues to happen where agriculture is concerned. Can you, Mr. Minister, tell us what has transpired so far since our last talk here?
I want to put everything that is taking place within the context that in agricultural production, it is driven significantly by what is demanded by the market. Production is of first importance when we consider what is taking place with supply and the demand. So even though you have a pandemic, you still have to assess what is going on within the context of production, supply, demand, and prices. In St. Vincent and the Grenadines, we have witnessed over the last 2 months the opening of 5 buying depots. And these are financed by the government. In fact, what we wanted to ensure is that throughout the length and breadth of the country, we have different areas that farmers can take their products to. The Love Box initiative has taken deep roots. We anticipated that with the closure of some ports in the OECS, ports which hitherto exported before the pandemic started, they were major exporters of agricultural products. Because we did not close our ports, we saw an increase in the demand for goods from St. Vincent and the Grenadines. And we have been able to service all our markets in the region and extra-regionally. The Love Box program and initiative has created in different areas and communities an opportunity for farmers to bring their produce. What takes place basically in the morning from 8 o'clock up until about 4 o'clock in the afternoon, you have farmers streaming in, trucks bringing products, and they're being graded, purchased, and paid for the next week. And it's really a beautiful sight to go to these areas and see persons there to receive their payment. Whilst all of this is going on, the traffickers to Trinidad and Tobago, to Barbados, to the British Virgin Islands and the USVI have always had the opportunity to get their products as well from farmers. And this goes to show that St. Vincent and the Grenadines is a food secured country, because we can still provide enough for the Love Box program, we can still export significant quantities, and it is not impacting a negative way on prices. So from a production standpoint, we have seen that the farmers are still harvesting and the farmers are still making a significant livelihood from agriculture. Importantly though, with the onset of COVID-19, the government would have passed the supplementary estimates in the House of Assembly. And as it pertains to the fishing subsector, we have the fishing gears now available for the fisher folk. We have advertised in the newspapers for bids.
So the government did in fact purchase the gears?
Yes, the gears are now available.
So they have arrived?
Yes, the gears have arrived, and we have purchased from local salespersons as well. Mm-hmm. And we have placed in the newspaper the advertisement as it pertains to the tendering for the building of the boats. And I was advised by the permanent secretary that this may run for another week, and then we are going to address the issue of the construction of the fishing vessels. 40 boats which are to be built, and they must have the specifications of the ice boxes to ensure that when they go out to fish, that when they come back, that the fish is as fresh as possible, because we are working within the context of the international framework where we have to set extremely high standards. As it pertains to the livestock, because in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, now we are seen in the OECS as the largest exporter of livestock. And this opportunity has provided for us the situation where we can increase production and productivity of livestock. So what we did is that we have already established a livestock revolving program. And this is where farmers will be given animals on the revolving program by the government. And when they reproduce, the veterinary division will come and take an animal, and it will revolve, because other farmers will be able to get animals from the program. We have already secured close to 1,200 animals, but we cannot discuss where we are in our efforts in this period of the pandemic without spending some time on the issue of the drought. We are currently experiencing, and we're coming to the tail end of it, one of the worst droughts that we have ever experienced. Definitely the worst in the last 50 years.
So is the ministry going to put any sort of mechanisms in place to help to address that situation?
Currently, our extension officers and data collectors are on the ground doing the work to get the information as to how the farmers were impacted. It is a policy of the government of St. Vincent and the Grenadines that whenever our farmers are impacted in a negative way, that there will be assistance. And I was advised by the cabinet that there is a plan and a framework to have some income support for the farmers of St. Vincent and the Grenadines affected by the drought, the very harsh drought conditions. In some areas, we have even seen where we had the death of livestock, where persons had to be assisted by the government to take water, to take animal feed to their animals, because the pastures were basically gone. And that definitely had a negative impact on livestock production. We have an order currently from Grenada. The private sector in Grenada contacted us, and of course he has to go through the protocols with his government, to export 100 heads of cattle from St. Vincent and the Grenadines. The issues of quarantining would have to be dealt with on both sides, because if you're coming into the country now, which he usually do, he will have to be quarantined for a period of 14 days. So right now we're working out the arrangement as to how we can have the best protocols to facilitate that export. But we are working with the modern technology that we have in the ministry. We're in the process of enforcing a system of tagging of animals, and that should begin in about a week or two. We have seen over the last 2 weeks the distribution of plants and plantlets and seeds and seedlings. In fact, currently there are 40,000 pineapple plants to go out to farmers, and farmers are taking up these plants on a day-to-day basis.
How do they access them?
You can just go to any one of the agriculture stations. The extension officers, of course, would know the farmers and the persons who are entering the agriculture sector. So it's not only for existing farmers, it's also for farmers who are entering the sector. We, last week, completed the distribution of 1,000 citrus plants. And, you know, there's a saying, they went like hot bread, because a lot of persons are not aware that in 2010, we were devastated by Hurricane Thomas. We lost a lot of trees, but then we had citrus greening, a disease coming after that, lasting for the entire decade, from 2010 to 2020, and it is still present. So we embarked on a program to revitalize the citrus subsector. And we have completed the distribution of the plants, and we're going into phase 2 now, where we're going to basically place in the nursery 10,000 plants. You know, when we grew up, everybody had a lime tree, everybody had an orange tree. Persons had their tangerine. I remember one time I was caught eating a tangerine in class, and I wonder how the teacher knew. But it's really fulfilling. And farmers are showing an extreme sense of pride and appreciation for the work that stakeholders throughout the value chain are offering at this point in time. Not only the government and the technicians in the government, but the supermarkets. You're talking about the persons who are transporting and doing the shipping, the exporters, the traffickers, the persons from the Medicinal Cannabis Authority, who basically they're anchoring this Love Box initiative in providing significant administrative support.
So I think that this is a good time for
Yes.
us to introduce Mr. MAPP, and
Yes.
he will tell us exactly what role the MCA is playing in this very important and significant initiative.
Thank you, Teresa. Well, let me first say a pleasant good evening to the people of St. Vincent and Grenadines and my colleagues at the Medicinal Cannabis Authority. You know, when COVID broke, it slowed a lot of things throughout the world. But the Medicinal Cannabis Authority, we haven't slowed down. We haven't taken our foot off the pedal. In fact, we have been doubling up. If you take, for instance, the CEO, Dr. Gerald Thompson, who is an excellent professional and a wonderful person to work with, somehow he placed himself in the COVID task force and has been doing wonderful work, traversing the entire St. Vincent and the Grenadines and educating people on how to, the measures, social distancing, washing your hands, and how measures to put in place to, you know, protect yourself against this dangerous disease. Then we go to you, Teresa Daniel, who is our communication consultant. You have been doing wonderful work again with the Ministry of Health. Then we could go to the chairman of the board, Richard Branch. He has been a leader in rolling out the stimulus package, the component of the agriculture ministry. He's been doing wonderful work as it regards the boat, dealing with the boat, the fishing boats and the gates and the gears. And if we go to Derona Borg, who is an economist by training, she has been the leader as it regards the Love Box initiative. She's she has, from day one, she has, when the minister gave her the leadership position to be the project coordinator, she has been,
To anchor that
project. And then the inspectorate and the licensing department of the authority, they have virtually operationalized the Love Box initiative. And if we go to Jean Cummins and Melissa Wiley, they have been working with the Ministry of Health, dealing specifically with the testing because they understand PCR. They research people, so they understand the component. And if we go to Fiona Denny and Dr. Young, they have been assisting Dr. Thompson with the whole response to COVID. So we have been busy. And Samantha Phillips and myself, who are economists by training, we have been assisting the Ministry of Agriculture while still pushing and the rollout of this medicinal cannabis industry. So we have been busy, and I don't want to get into what we have been.
We'll talk about some of the specifics later on.
Yes.
We'll take our first break, and when we come back, we'll expand some more on the Love Basic initiative, which has really gone viral, I would say.
Yes.
So we'll talk some about that. And we'd also want to talk about the medicinal cannabis industry itself, which some people seem to have some doubts about right now. Back in just a moment.
Good day, everybody. I am your language teacher, Miss McGuire. Tune into VC3 every week where you can get live learning sessions. See you there.
On Friday, June 12th,
There'll be thousands of dollars to be won. A lotto jackpot of
$63,000.
a new home, car, or that college education.
Lotto, you have to be in it to win it.
Next lotto jackpot.
$63,000.
Seems to me, girl, you know I can't. You see, I've been stole and I borrow. Yeah, yeah. Ooh, and now I'm easy. I'm easy like Sunday morning.
Welcome back. Just before the break, Mr. MAPP was talking about the role the MCA is playing, and I think you named your staff basically and spoke about their various roles. I think it's a testament to the very high standard of talent, the talent pool that you guys have been able to put together, that at the drop of a hand, they have been able to fit into the entire scenario. I think that we have a question. Yes, there's a question, comment. We should consider introducing some water desalination plants on the mainland as a backup plan to alleviate the recurring water shortage during drought conditions. This water supply can then be tied into our main lines during drought conditions. This would take care of us in the long term. So a comment there. I don't know if Minister wishes to respond.
Well, there are different methodologies when you addressing the issue of drought conditions and climate change. And irrigation plays a very important role. In fact, the banana company in Measures provided support to a large number of farmers especially in the coastal areas, to get water tanks and drip lines, because drip irrigation is one that we have practiced. What we have noticed over the last 20 years in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, when we really took a serious approach to irrigation, is that when we place the irrigation heads in the rivers, it is good when the river level is low, but when it becomes torrent in the rainy season, talking about from August right down to December, sometimes into January, we lost tens of millions of dollars in irrigation hardware. And we're in the process of rethinking that, because what we may have to actually do is to use some engineering skills and channel the water inland, away from the banks of the river. We lost a lot in the Georgetown area. Also in right in Diamonds, we use the water course in Diamonds to irrigate the Sans Souci, what was formerly the Sans Souci estate. So it is something that we're working with. We have a technical department addressing that. I know that the issue of a desalination plant and desalination plants were raised, and these are especially for the Grenadines. But I think with greater opportunities for water storage, and it's something that we are currently addressing, that we will be able to weather the storm when it comes to the droughts, because with climate change, the weather is very uncertain. Some persons are even wondering, are we going to have another dry spell in August? I hope not, and I pray not. But I am really working with the technicians in the ministry to ensure that the issues of irrigation are addressed. And I just want to endorse the drive that we have with the greenhouse parks. I went up to Montreal Greenhouse Park last weekend.
How many are they?
There are about, in the actual greenhouse park, there are about 8 very large greenhouses. And when you see, because of the irrigation, the impact that it is having on production, it's definitely not impacted in a negative way. And there are a lot of other farmers who are also going into greenhouse production and having their water storage. And this definitely is something that we're going to work on to enhance.
Back to the Love Box initiative.
Yes.
We promised that we would talk a bit more about that. What was the idea, the thinking behind the establishment of this project?
Yes. Well, long before COVID-19, St. Vincent and the Grenadines were being leaders in the thrust towards reducing hunger and undernourishment. And in fact, we were the first English-speaking country in the Western Hemisphere to have a parliamentary front against hunger. It is where both government and opposition agreed that when it comes to fighting hunger and undernourishment, we have a united front. And this was advanced by the FAO of the United Nations. After that, we had the development of the very important and novel program, the Zero Hunger Trust Fund. And it was part of the government's manifesto that we want to ensure that we take hunger and undernourishment to a number approaching zero. Since then, we have worked with several organizations and different stakeholders to address this matter. So up comes COVID-19, where many persons were laid off. Some persons lost employment because of the external shock. If you're working in the tourism sector, you're working at a hotel, and the hotel is closed, of course, you become vulnerable. And being food vulnerable is one of the issues that we considered, because it was clear in the Sustainable Development Goals that at every step, the issues of food affordability, food accessibility, and food availability, 3 very important A's when we are addressing the issue of zeroing hunger. So the cabinet in its wisdom decided that we have to make food available and accessible. And because of the issue of persons not having the same income in some instances, it had to be affordable. And we decided to have a care program, and it is dubbed the Love Box program. We spoke to a large cadre of farmers, and they said that they were able to supply the goods. And we selected the items, and we always ensured that we maintained our external markets. So we are purchasing a percentage of the production, because what we don't want to do is to put all the food on the Love Box program. You lose the external markets, and when you're now ready to ramp up production to export, those markets are gone to other producers from other countries. So we have maintained our market share regionally and extra-regionally, and we have been able to, over the last month, distribute over 2,800 Love Boxes. And we're speaking about vegetables, fruits, and even some snacks, which are made, little plantain chips
farine.
And farine, made by eggs are also part of it. And it is an exciting project because the farmers are able to sell goods every single day. You sell Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday to the Love Box program. Saturday and Sunday, you sell into your traffickers, and also on a Thursday and a Wednesday. So farmers have basically embraced this in a way that we could not imagine. And to see the joy on the faces of the families receiving these boxes.
Who can access these boxes?
These boxes are distributed mainly through the churches and the Ministry of National Mobilization. So if I tell you I know who these boxes are going to, I don't know who these boxes are going to, but I know that there's a mechanism where church leaders, they will call the Ministry of National Mobilization, and they have a national system. I saw where someone posted a picture on Facebook where some boxes were delivered in Union Island. I've seen boxes in Beckway, in North Leeward, in different places of the country. And persons are commenting they're very happy for these boxes. And I really want to thank all of the farmers, the MC, the technicians in the ministry, the persons who are working day in, day out to make this excellent initiative possible.
And how long do you think this program will go on for?
Well, some persons are saying that this is a program that should be a permanent program, not definitely in the large quantities, but we have an excellent social safety net system in this country where we work to ensure that families who are food vulnerable, that they get assistance. Instead of giving someone, of course, persons will need financing to cover some bills because they may fall into some difficulty whether they're physically unable to work. But we can support the farmers by having everything in the Love Boxes made locally, which is the situation now, and ensure that citizens who are vulnerable can access the local produce. So you're helping the farmers, you're helping stakeholders through the value chain, and you're helping persons who are vulnerable. And I would suggest that this program and initiative will continue in some form of fashion throughout the period, because we have up until 2030 to basically achieve the Sustainable Development Goals. And it should become a permanent plank, a permanent pillar of our quest to zero hunger. And I am seeing where other countries are taking it up on board. Of course, they may not have the quantities of food that we have. Some persons have already said to us in the ministry that because of the Love Box initiative, a lot of the goods that were not able to be marketed are now marketed. So it is fueling an internal trade in the economy. And when you add that to the already existing trade with the supermarkets, with the persons who have the different vegetable stalls around the country, and these are popping up at different places. You pass, you see nice mangoes, guavas, pineapples being sold at different places, and I really want to commend them for the very tidy work that is being done. When you add that to the Love Box initiative and what is happening in our route, what is happening in fisheries, what is happening on the export end, what is happening in cannabis, we are really seeing before our very eyes the onset of a green revolution, where a lot of persons who before now were ifing and butting and wondering whether or not they should get into agriculture. You're seeing persons who have other jobs now saying, I want a piece of land.
Have you seen an intake of people getting into agriculture since?
A lot of young persons especially getting into agriculture since COVID-19, because especially those who are into backyard gardening, and what we're seeing is that persons would utilize a very small portion of their yard. They are now expanding, and they had a mindset where they wanted to grow and eat what they grow, but now
they want to sell.
They have to sell,
yeah,
because the production has increased. So moving away from the subsistence.
From your vantage point, what have been the main lessons that you have learned or that you can see coming out of this Love Box initiative?
Well, the Love Box initiative, from the standpoint of the MC, it has taught us, it has challenged us to bring out our best, and it has taught us that, I really want to take this opportunity to thank the Cabinet and the Minister of Agriculture for giving us such a strong team at the MC. So it has brought out the best in us, that we could be nimble and we could be efficient, we could balance, we could do many things at once, because a crisis forces you to do more with less, and we have been doing that. So the initiative has sort of incentivized farmers to increase production and productivity. And Teresa, you and I, we have traveled from Langley Park to Ladders to Lacqua to Rosebank, and we have seen the produce. We are not agriculturists, but we are impressed with what we saw. We are quite impressed with the amount of farmers coming there and the customer service of the persons at the station, how they are dealing with farmers, because farmers are business people. They are professionals just like us. They may not be wearing tie and jacket, but they are important people. They are the people who feed us, and from that point of view, we have seen that market being created and the MCA staff leading the thing and showing leadership skills. At the MC, we have been pushing the staff to be leaders. Everybody's a leader. And I think the Love Box has brought that out, especially for Dirona Borg, who is a young professional and the project coordinator. She has been doing a wonderful job leading this initiative.
I want to talk when we come back about, I know for a fact that investors in the medicinal cannabis industry have been are committed to putting some funds into a particular project. We'll talk a little bit about that. Yes. I think when we come back, we'll talk about that and see how that also fits into the MCA's agenda. Back in just a moment.
We can all help stop the spread of germs and prevent the spread of respiratory viruses like COVID-19 and the flu. Wash your hands for at least 20 seconds. Avoid touching your face with unwashed hands. Avoid skin-to-skin contact with other people. Stay home and away from others while you're sick. Cover your mouth and nose when coughing or sneezing. And finally, clean frequently touched objects and surfaces. For more information, visit scdhec.gov/COVID-19.
Seems to me, girl, you know I care. You see, I extolled and I borrowed. Yeah, ooh, and I'm easy.
On Friday, June 12th,
There'll be thousands of dollars to be won. A lotto jackpot of
$63,000.
a new home, car, or that college education.
Lotto, you have to be in it to win it.
Next lotto jackpot.
$63,000.
Welcome back, and just a reminder that you can contribute to the program by contacting us via Facebook or viewing us on YouTube as well. Send your questions, your comments, and we'll be happy to respond. Before the break, I was trying to make the point that the Medicinal Cannabis Authority, or the industry, does not exist in isolation. Yeah? Because we have to eat. So it's not a matter of having cannabis and you don't have food to eat, because we have to eat, and there has to be a balance. So how is the MCA going to ensure that that in fact takes place?
Thank you for your question, Teresa. The first thing is that the MCA has been strategically placed within the Ministry of Agriculture, and we have built relationship with all the various departments within the ministry. As it relates food and cannabis, the marriage, in the medicinal cannabis license fees regulation, a fee, food security authorization fee, was placed there, where the foreign investor companies, the non-nationals, they had to pay $250,000 in addition to their license fee, but that was due a year after the license was approved and the payment was made. So that hasn't become due yet, that $250,000. What we have been doing and what we have been observing, particularly, let's start with the investors, the non-nationals. At their farm, those who have been approved to commence operations, you will see there part of the land has cannabis, well, portions of it has food too. And I remember when the minister spoke at Green Lava Lunch, he commended them for having a papaya tree at the entrance. And, you know, he was really impressed with that. When I went down there to Green Lava site a couple of weeks ago, in the back, you see them with their food trees, and it was quite impressive. With respect to the traditional cultivators now, what we have been learning and what I have been advised, particularly from the inspectors like Renford Byam and Dennis Samuel, will tell me, if a traditional cultivator has 5 acres assigned for cannabis production, because the license allows for 5 acres of production, what will take place is that 1 acre is, in their own mind, the way in which they have structured their farm, 1 acre is for cannabis, and the other 4 acres is allocated to food production. So traditional cultivators of cannabis are already embedded in them is that understanding of the importance of food and food production. Even when we go to Lasham now, the cabinet has given the MC approval.
So explain to us, what is Lasham for those?
Lasham Tapil, that is over 250 acres of land in North Leeward, down Richmond. The cabinet has given us approval to subdivide the lands to make it available to traditional cultivators of cannabis for not just cannabis production, but for food production. And we have done a drone image of the land, and we have done some drone surveying, because the plan is to subdivide the land into 2-acre plot to give out to traditional cultivators, 2 to 3 acre plot. And the plan is a portion of it will go towards cannabis, and another portion will go towards food production. So we will be working with the Ministry of Agriculture, the technicians. The MC will be working with the Ministry of Agriculture to establish this environment. Lasham, the vision we have for Lasham is a capital of food production down North Leeward, because Lasham, the land has been fallow for quite some time. When you go to Lasham, you actually see persons there doing yam farming, they're doing the dashing, and these are traditional cultivators of cannabis, doing other types of production. Lasham now has over 50 heads of cattle. I think the minister went down there, and every time the cattle are in good health, and the plan is to allocate a portion of land down Lasham and Tapil for livestock farming. So we will be assisting the traditional cultivators in livestock farming and establishing farm. So the Medicinal Cannabis Authority, and the mandate has come from the minister that the focus should not just be on cannabis, but agriculture as a whole, expanding production. And what makes it easy for us is that embedded in the DNA of the traditional cultivators. In fact, I have been advised that up the valley, up close to Lassofe, where they are doing a lot of cannabis farming, though illegally, a lot of food production actually takes place up there. And I have told the minister, probably we should send some data people up there to assess the amount of food and livestock up in the hills, because cannabis cannot be eaten. You can't eat cannabis. So in terms of rolling out a platform of cannabis and food production, the MC has been given that mandate, and in fact, my CEO is quite excited about this drive towards food production. He's very, very excited, and we are looking to work with the ministry towards this end.
I remember in the year 2007, going into 2008, at the time I was a junior minister in the Ministry of Agriculture, and we received $3 million through the ALBA program from President Hugo Chavez to do an alternative sustainable livelihoods program. And this was, of course, before the whole issue of medicinal cannabis. And at that time, I remember sitting in the meetings with hundreds of traditional cultivators to discuss agriculture as it pertains to food production, because there are a lot of persons who have a misconception that when you see a man who is a ganja farmer, that all he plants is cannabis. All he's planting is weed. But if you go on his farm, you will definitely see a diversity and definitely a diverse production platform there where he's farming. We just discussed the supplementary estimates. And I want persons who are listening to be aware that the traditional cultivators of cannabis, who are now part and parcel of that cadre of persons working with the Medicinal Cannabis Authority, they have their traditional cultivators licenses, that these persons can access all of the resources which are made available, whether it's livestock, inputs, fertilizer, scoops, whether it is the issue of the boats, they want to go into fishing. So we are looking at St. Vincent and the Grenadines, whereby the traditional cannabis cultivators are now an integral part of a diversified agricultural platform. And I had a discussion 2 nights ago with a gentleman who is a herbalist. He's not certified, but he has been doing a lot of work, and he has some training from different persons along the generations of persons involved in producing herbs in this country. And he now is working, getting the advanced technology provided by an investor, a local investor who merged with an international investor. And he wants to do testing of his product and to now farm turmeric, many acres of turmeric, to address the issue of the extraction of moringa oil, seeing what kind of product can be created if you mix the moringa oil with the coconut oil, and to have the persons who are medically trained to do their testing. So we are seeing in St. Vincent and the Grenadines unfolding before our very eyes a diversified production platform in which plant-based medicine is going to play a very important role. And it now dovetails into the whole issue of us not only being a destination where persons would come for our beaches, but wellness. We want to be known as a place where if you want to get well, you go to St. Vincent and the Grenadines.
And you get well.
And you get well.
Okay, there's a question for you. Taking into account, I imagine, the limited land resource in SVG, which is to be used for agriculture and social programs, what is the plan of the Ministry of Agriculture along with the Ministry of Lands, same ministry now,
Yes.
to maximize cannabis production for medicinal purposes vis-a-vis other agricultural practices without compromising the quality of cannabis with insecticides and other chemicals?
Well, one thing I want to note in answering the question is that we have a thrust in this country to reduce the use of hazardous chemicals. A lot of persons are now saying thanks because there's no more aerial spraying. Remember the times when Peter Plane used to be flying over the entire country, releasing chemicals. Of course, when you had the bananas in a particular area and it was pure stand bananas, it was easier. But then persons start to live very close to these fields, and it was impacting on the villages. You no longer have aerial spraying in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Secondly, we have a total ban on the usage and the importation of glyphosate products. You heard about the Roundup case in the US. And what we did, we led the initiative in the entire Caribbean. One of the first to ban glyphosate products coming into the country. And I remember some farmers were saying, but we need to use our touchdown. We need to use this, we need to use that. We have placed a ban on them. We have placed a ban on aerial spraying. And we have not seen a reduction in production and productivity. Because in the worst drought in 50 years, we are still food secure, we are still exporting, we could still do the love boxes. And we have food that is safer, produced with less pesticides and chemicals. We are seeing where a lot of the persons who we thought were going to use large expanses of open land area to farm cannabis, that for medicinal cannabis, it is a smaller area, it is more intensive farming which is done, and that this farming, because we don't have the aerial spraying, is not affected by the aerial spraying, and we don't have the touchdown, we don't have the Roundup being used anymore. So it's a far more safer environment. In fact, we're trying to carve out a space in the export markets for organically produced goods from St. Vincent and the Grenadines, which will fetch a much higher price than the conventionally produced goods that we are currently exporting. So, for example, let's take turmeric. You could have a pound of turmeric being sold in the Miami market now for $2 per pound, $2 EC per pound. But if it is organic, it can reach up to $3.50. The tech pack is slightly different. The cost of production is slightly higher because it has more manual labor involved in it. But it is compensated because of the price that you have. And it is something that we are embracing as a marketing tool and mechanism to fetch a much higher price for the commodities produced in St. Vincent and the Grenadines.
There's another question. Are there any plans to model our marketing board corporation, like in the 70s, late 80s, to provide farmers with a guarantee market through government, and the government focus on finding the regional, extra-regional, and international markets, since the challenges facing the farmers to find such markets are surmountable?
Yes. Now, there is the model in some countries still that the state should purchase the goods, all the goods from the farmers, and the state should become the exporter of these goods. Well, it is a model that we inherited, because if you look at the plantation economy and how agriculture has evolved and how agriculture came to our islands, it was basically the metropole selecting a commodity. At one time it was cotton, at one time it was tobacco, at one time it was sugar or arrowroot. And the state, being the colonial power, purchasing these commodities and exporting it. Now, we have evolved. And we have seen the rise of the private sector as a force to export. So if you in answering that question, it's an excellent question that I would like us to debate, because some persons have one view and I have a different view. In the days when you had slavery, long before emancipation, you did not have the cadre of traffickers moving to sell goods as an independent private sector. No, we have an independent private sector. And what the government is doing is to create the enabling environment. And how do you create this environment? You build the Argyle International Airport, which gives persons greater access and accessibility to markets. You have the OECS Competitiveness Project in agriculture, where we are asking persons to pool their resources to become national aggregators, so they could have greater economies of scales and scope to be able to bring enough goods in a consolidated fashion to be able to export. We have some drawbacks.
Let's talk about the drawbacks when we come back for our final segment. Back in just a moment.
On Friday, June 12th,
there'll be thousands of dollars to be won. A lotto jackpot of
$63,000.
a new home, car, or that college education.
Lotto, you have to be in it to win it.
Next lotto jackpot,
$63,000.
Welcome back. Minister, you were talking about the drawbacks, the private versus the state. Yeah.
One of the main problems we're facing today in the particular model that we have, where we have moved away from a centrally owned marketing corporation, is the absence of marine transport that is reliable throughout the region. The OECS has a revised Treaty of Basseterre, where we have a single market and economy, similar to the revised Treaty of Chagarama, so when you speak about CARICOM. However, if you cannot efficiently and in an efficacious manner move food throughout the member states, it is going to create a bottleneck. And here is where we have moved so far away from consolidated marketing by the state to now, with the technology, we want to have the virtual marketplace. The virtual marketplace is not going to be owned by the state. The virtual marketplace is going to be owned, managed, and operated by the children of the education revolution, the children of the farmers, the children of the farmer traffickers, where we want to move from you put in a sakadashin on a boat, hoping that you get it sold. We want to be able, before the goods leave St. Vincent and the Grenadines,
the order
we know the best markets to take the goods to.
Correct.
And we know the price that is going to be arranged. And we had a discussion last week with the Bureau of Standards, because there's a Standards Act in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. And we want, going forward, for us to gradually address issues of the standardization of goods being exported from St. Vincent and the Grenadines going into the international markets. Because what you have taking place is a very hard-working farmer going to his fields every single day. But when you move the goods from the farm gate to the port, there's so much damage done to the product between the farm gate and the port that when it gets to the market, whether it's the Tunapuna market or it gets to the Bridgetown market, the value, because of that, the packaging and the bruises is so great that you have far less being passed back to the farmer. What we are saying is that if we keep that game as good and efficient as the farmer had produced the good, and you package it properly, and you get it to the marketplace in time, well-packaged product of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and especially if you could put it organic with having those new modalities of production, then we can see more money is going to the farmers and farming becoming even more profitable than it is today.
Somebody wants to know, before I bring back in Mr. MAPP, what is the true financial situation of Wibdeco and Winfresh regarding its debt situation, and are there plans for managerial restructuring?
Wibdeco, which is now Winfresh, definitely is affected by what is taking place with COVID-19. That's one. But we must always, when we address the issue of bananas, remember that there was a banana case when our preferences were removed. And we are now competing in a global marketplace without any preferences. And that it was always going to be challenging for Winfresh to be able to compete with producers from other countries and regions in the UK market because of the low cost of production. Some islands in the windwards, very early o'clock, abandoned the banana industry. In St. Vincent and the Grenadines, where we are currently, is that we have noted there is going to always be a place for the banana sector. We are going to continue to export to the region, and wherever we find new spaces in the region and the regional market, we are going to ensure that we occupy those market spaces. But in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, since we had the opening of the Argyle International Airport and the building of all these resorts and going up, we have seen and we're going to see a further expansion in the demand for bananas for local consumption. A lot more persons are buying bananas today than persons were buying bananas before. So it is now a fruit which is in our supermarkets being sold, and we're looking at the regional market. And I can't fault Winfresh for what is taking place, because there will be a lot of casualties coming out of as a result and implication of the banana case and the judgment by the World Trade Organization. And I want to thank and congratulate Winfresh for fighting so far to stay alive, and especially in the diversification thrust that they have put forward and advanced, because St. Vincent and the Grenadines has Vinci Fresh, which by and large is one of the best hardware that we have for agro-processing in the entire OECS.
Thank you, Minister. Before we go, time is catching up on us as usual. I wanted Mr. MAPP to talk a little bit more about what is happening at the MCA right now, because some people are of the impression that there's nothing happening, and that is far from the case. So
yes,
tell us what's happening.
Well, when COVID broke, the focus of every country in the world was rightfully so, on COVID and how do we combat COVID. So the MCA went quiet, and we were quietly busy during that time, working on, take for instance, the patient access to medicinal cannabis regulations, which was published recently and approved, and the amnesty regulations that are approved now. We have been busy working on those, but I want to speak more to the industry. I think the expectation was that, by some persons, was that licenses are granted today, and by tomorrow, you have a whole field of cannabis. That was the expectation by some persons. But we are learning now that the industry is complex. It's quite dynamic, and it's evolving. Every day, it's evolving. So, and it's a medicine, so you have to do it safe. Each cannabis farm is a project in and of itself. It's like a capital project by the government. What has taken place, let me start with the negative first. Because of COVID, some technical consultants who were supposed to come down to set up equipment so that the first manufacturing facility could be up and running. It was the expectation that the first facility would be up and running within the first quarter, within the first 6 months, because significant work, retrofitting work, has been done on a building to bring it up to scale and to make it compliant with international standards for processing and manufacturing. But because of COVID and travel restrictions and stay-at-home orders, technical consultants can't come in. In terms of some investors are stuck in their country. And as I said, these are projects in and of themselves. And they want to be here to see the project set up and the fencing. You have to fence your property, you have to put in camera system. Millions of dollars in equipment have been imported in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. The cannabis industry has provided income. Over 200 persons have benefited from income. And in addition to application and license fees, more money has been invested in the economy to build out cannabis farm than what we have actually received in application and license fees. Every week, every 2 weeks, and the minister is here, a request comes to the cabinet for concessions. You have greenhouses in St. Vincent, and they bright up the place at nights. You know, greenhouses with lights. We have plants under lights 24 hours a day to make sure you have proper mother plants, to facilitate proper cuttings and so forth. So the cannabis industry, I can say, remains stable. Amidst COVID, the cannabis industry remains stable. And a lot of exciting things are happening right now in the cannabis industry.
And I can't think of a better way on which to end this evening's edition of Roundtable Talk. Thank you, Mr. Minister. Always ready to respond. And
thank you for having me.
To come. Same to you, TERRAL MAPP. And thanks again. We'll be back next week for another edition of Roundtable Talk.
We can all help stop the spread of germs and prevent the spread of respiratory viruses like COVID-19 and the flu. Wash your hands for at least 20 seconds. Avoid touching your face with unwashed hands. Avoid skin-to-skin contact with other people. Stay home and away from others while you're sick. Cover your mouth and nose when coughing or sneezing. And finally, clean frequently touched objects and surfaces. For more information, visit scdhec.gov/COVID-19.
Hi boys and girls, how are you today? I am Iron Little and I want you to join me on VC3 as I take you to the part of language arts. You will have lots of fun. So don't forget, VC3 every week. Join me right here.
Seems to me, girl, you know I don't know I can. You see, I beg, stole, and I borrow. Yeah, yeah. Ooh, and I'm easy. I'm easy like Sunday morning.
On Friday, June 12th,
There'll be thousands of dollars to be won. A lotto jackpot of
$63,000.
a new home, car, or that college education.
Lotto, you have to be in it to win it.
Next lotto jackpot.
$63,000.